We can help with information and resources.
WWDB 860 AM Philadelphia and WPEN HD2 Burlington, Philadelphia.
For Lachi, winning means using her voice to bring hope to others with vision loss. The Foundation Fighting Blindness is committed to funding research to end blinding retinal diseases. The Foundation Fighting Blindness. Together, we're winning. Learn more at fightingblindness.org.
WWDB Philadelphia, the talk station.
Good afternoon, greater Philadelphia area. This is Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole, she's Sarah Time, she's Stacy Mitchell. We have Nick behind the camera, and we all work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the number one RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we're streaming live every week on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Just look up Tom Toole Sales Group. Make sure to follow and subscribe. So, got a lot of stuff to talk about this week. Something happened for the first time in 7 years. And anytime you have something happening only once out of the past 7 years, it's pretty exciting. So there's a tweet from Steve Harney of Keeping Current Matters, and he shows the new listing data based on the number of new homes that come to the market over a monthly basis, dating back to 2017. And for the first time since 2017, the number of new homes that came to the market in the month of August beat out the month of July. And this could mean a lot of things. Is something about to happen? Are people getting okay with the sticker shock of 7+% rates? Maybe people without a mortgage are making a move to where they can buy all cash from the equity that they gained over the past few years. Or maybe some people are just looking at, hey, I need to move. I'm not going to wait anymore. Rates aren't coming down. There's a lot to unpack here, and we're going to get into all the economic data. What's your initial reaction to this, ladies? Because I was excited to see this, because this is kind of what a lot of home buyers have been waiting for.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely exciting to see that line go up. As you look at this chart, though, you'll also see the year of 2023 just as a whole is well below a lot of the other years, but still good news to see that tick up. That certainly is something that buyers are waiting for.
Yeah, I think that people are just probably realizing this is going to be, it's more normal than not. Mm-hmm. What we had in the past with the interest rates was not normal.
Right.
And I know that people wished it and want it to be and continue to be normal, but it's not. It's never been. There was very unique set of circumstances called the pandemic. So that is why the interest rates were so low. This is definitely more normal. So I think people are willing to accept it. They're tired. Again, I'll go back to everybody's put their lives on hold for so long for the pandemic and even longer for, this interest rates. So they're like, okay, let's move on. Or, you don't have a crystal ball. Nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow or a month from now or a year from now. So let's stop holding up our lives. If we need to move, we have to move, and let's go.
Right.
I would argue the savvy consumer is the one listing their home right now, because rates are very clearly going to go down at some point. Who knows when? I'm kind of skeptical. We've talked about this last week, of these 6% rates happening towards the end of the year. We've got a Fed meeting coming up in 2 weeks. We'll talk about that as well. There's still a lot of demand out there. I mean, people are still seeing multiple offers. You're still seeing property sell above the asking price. There was a home, I sold this in Westchester. It was listed at $600,000. They bought it about a year ago for in the fives. It sold for $720,000. And this is a nice. I mean, good for them, right? I mean, They just made a killing. I mean, on that. I mean, they're going to have some capital gains tax to deal with, which is in a good way.
Okay.
But I mean, this is a property that was held just for a couple years. So, as more inventory comes to the market, you want to be the one that's taking advantage when there's not a lot of folks out there doing the same thing. And what we've seen is that, I mean, this number coming up, I mean, hopefully it's a sign of things to come, because I don't see inventory skyrocketing here, by the way. I look at this as it's going in the right direction because it's been so low, and there's still buyers trying to wait out the market. And I'd be really careful if I was that buyer, because when rates do come down, remember what it was like when the market opened up in 2020? It was just like, and it took a little time. Like the first day, people were out. But then, like 3 months later, it got pretty bananas and pretty incredible in terms of what we were seeing happen. And then 2021 was even wilder. So, I would look at this as it's almost like that showing line. Remember how we watched the showing time graph during the pandemic about like what's happening in Pennsylvania, and we saw that little blip up. This could, and we're not going to see this skyrocket. I want to be really clear because people are still going to be locked in. Just some people, they've had enough. They want to move, and they can't time it anymore. And that's a real factor. I mean, are you feeling that sentiment in the market? Have you had anyone that maybe has been someone you've been working with for a while, and they just said, screw it, I'm going to go ahead and do a transaction or list my house?
Yeah. And people who, what was interesting about like the case that's popping in my head right now is it wasn't people that were like busting out of the house and it was like, we must move, like we don't fit here anymore. It was more, they thought they were going to be longer term. They've been kind of casually looking for a while, and like the right opportunity came up, and they are, an example of somebody that was locked into a very low interest rate. But the outcome outweighed that piece of it. And like eventually like that line's going to teeter for different people, and the benefit of doing the move and maybe sacrificing that low interest rate, but to be in a house that makes sense, like that outweighs it at some point. And I feel like for like the skyrocketing that we're saying isn't coming. I think like for all these different pieces, whether it's interest rates or how many homes are up and on the market, you don't want to see like major skyrockets or major dips, even if it is a good thing. Like you don't want that to all hit exactly at once. So it's, slow and steady is kind of the best way.
Yeah, I think slow and steady is always the best way. I mean, people are a little leery with the interest rates, the way that they're going up and down just on a daily basis. A couple of, from like 7.5 to back down to 7.125 and then back up to 7.5. And people are kind of, nervous about those moves, let alone if we had, big numbers, big swings one way or another with the housing inventory.
Yeah.
If we had a ton of inventory come on, then people would get nervous.
Right.
And especially sellers, like, oh my gosh, look at this competition. Is my house going to sit? There's a whole other set of problems that could arise from that.
Right.
So steady as she goes is definitely the plan. So with my clients, they, the majority of them that really decided to list were because of they did have situations that, they wanted to get bigger, into a bigger home, or they were downsizing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the situation. But I can see where other sellers that have been on the fence, would be really considering let's move or let's do something here. And we're tired of waiting.
Right.
We just talked about somebody who's been in our system since like 2016, 2019, something like that. And we're finally, and it's been a tag team effort. This is not like a one-person thing. And the guy's finally ready to start doing something. And I mean, for him, it's a different situation. He doesn't have to go buy another home or do something else. But it just takes time in some of these cases. And I don't know if the market's going to get any better for sellers, because when rates do come down, which they will at some point, we're going to see a lot more people come to the market. And that's the mistake that you never want to be the one that misses the market. Like, and we've been saying this for a while. So I'm glad to see some people are starting to pay attention. And I'm clear there's going to be a window here to still take advantage, at least for the next 12 weeks. And then we'll see what happens in the holiday season and in December when things historically do slow down. This is how the market's always been in the Northeast. You get that back-to-school bump. You have that 12-week window, and then there's still opportunities, but just not as many. So some of the other data coming out, we saw purchase applications, they fell 2% week to week. We saw rates, they've still been bumping around in that like 7 1/8 to 7.5 range. And we've got some important data coming out this week. So towards the end of the week, we're going to see a couple reports that the Fed will certainly be scrutinizing. The two inflation reports specifically, the CPI data and the PPI data, that'll give us a sense of where inflation is running. And obviously CPI is the one they really look at. We've already seen unemployment come back as again, I don't see it being favorable. I don't think anyone here does, but the Fed certainly sees it that way. And we've got this meeting coming up in 2 weeks, so a little over a week from today. And it's likely that we're going to see a 93% chance that the Fed does not raise rates as of right now. I'm clear this inflation report is going to be pretty important. How do you see the rest of September playing out? What are we going to see the Fed do? what's the rest of the month going to be like for people that are thinking about buying or selling a home right now?
I think that, I mean, it's speculated that the inflation numbers that are going to come out this week are not going to be where the feds want them to be, the magic 2%, just because the energy costs are higher. So even though they leave those out, it still spills into some other areas. That being said, I think the feds might raise another, yeah.
So you're going against the grain here, Stacey.
I know. It's
Now
new.
this isn't state. This is the CME Group. They make these predictions. It's a rolling average.
Yeah. So I think they might raise it. That's where I am today because of what I was hearing coming in. They were speculating that the inflation numbers are not going to be favorable. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see.
I kind of think my thought is that this meeting they don't raise, but I think, the next one they will. In terms of, what does this look like for the consumer buying and selling? I think that this pocket that we're in right now has a lot of opportunity. You just have to be motivated and serious. It's not for the faint of heart.
Right. And I think you have to look at the bottom line numbers too.
Mhm.
So factor in your monthly payment. I mean, that's the most important thing.
Mhm.
when
Right.
Getting into a house. What's it going to cost me monthly, including my taxes, any HOAs, things like that, insurance. What's that number? Can
Right.
you do that number?
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of have to think of it like that as opposed to, oh my gosh, it's an 8%,
Right.
mortgage rate.
Right.
So,
Find out if
yes.
if you can do the monthly. Don't let the whole number completely get you overwhelmed.
Right.
Break
and
it
lose your
down.
opportunity.
Right. And then see if you can make that monthly piece fit. And also for the buyers out there, how long do you plan on being in this home? Are you going to be there for several years, for 5 years, for 10 years? And kind of think big picture.
Yeah. I think that's how people have to wrap their heads around it.
Right.
When you buy a car, that's one thing that people don't ever really ask. What's
Mhm.
my interest rate?
Right.
What do they ask? What's my monthly payment?
Right.
Right?
Right.
So we need to think of it that way.
That's really great advice, and I would argue there's actually some pros to selling and buying in the current environment, and we're going to run through them here. So, because a lot of people they to your point, like no one ever does ask. Car purchases are wild to me because the payments are astronomically high. I don't like the idea of a car payment in general, and it's when you get these new sexy cars, I mean you're talking about like thousands of dollars a month. It's pretty incredible. So. For sellers, what some of the pros of transacting right now, we still got very high demand. There's still a lot of intent in the marketplace. And if your home's not seeing traffic, it's probably priced too high. I mean, that's kind of what we've seen across the board. There's less competition on the market than there will be when rates are going down because people are going to have potentially, and that means better price and better terms. So, like the waiving of home inspections, right? There's still some of that going on. Probably not as common as we saw about a year ago. This is right when the market started to shift. And really the best time is to be on the market when the neighbors are not. You might be less affected by higher rates because of your cash position and what you're buying, especially if you're coming in with a high down payment and you're getting like a $100,000 loan versus a $500,000 loan. That could be pretty advantageous. Some buyers may take a break from the market, which means that the people looking right now are typically really serious. I don't think there's any buyer out there right now that's doesn't have a lot of intent. I mean, do you have anyone that's just kicking tires or are your
Always.
Well, okay, always, but your people that you already know this though, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, but the people in general that are looking, I mean, you've each had some listings sell over the past couple weeks. There's people with intent on that.
Yeah.
I mean, you sold that. How much was that listing that you just sold? It was on the property on Pickett.
It was listed at. Should I give what it was listed and what it
Yeah,
sold for?
yeah. I mean, I just want to give an idea for the price point and what kind of activity you saw.
Yeah, I mean, it was listed at 500,000, went for 550, had a handful of very, very strong offers in, all good terms, all, good price point. And then there were, additional agents that kind of reached out. I mean, it could have been more offers, but there were agents that were, would call in and say would this even be considered? And, my answer is always, I will present any and all offers, but No.
Yeah.
Don't waste
How
your
many
time.
Don't waste your time.
how many showings did you have though? Like, what was the traffic numbers? I think that's probably even more telling than anything else.
So this hit the market on Friday of a holiday weekend, and we were under contract Monday, had an open house on Saturday so just Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because we had set an offer deadline for Sunday. I mean, probably like 15 to 20 showings, which
so,
is,
so a year ago, that would have been like 50.
yeah,
Is my point. So you still got, and out of those, you have, let's say there's 4 offers, 3 offers that came in, whatever the number is, you got basically 25% of people writing an offer.
Mhm.
So they have high intent. These people aren't messing around.
Right.
And then was there any like negative feedback of reasons why people didn't move ahead? Like,
the only, honestly, the only ones that were, and it wasn't even negative feedback, but, this is the first house that my client has looked at. Like, we're very early
Sure.
in the search, things of that nature.
So and that really demonstrates my point is that if you got 25% of everyone coming to look at a home writing an offer, that means people have intent right now. So even though, I people always talk about waiting until the spring. I'm a big believer that you want to look at the market conditions and make a decision based on that. So that case study is really helpful. Prices are still rising is another pro. And if you already got a new home, I mean, there's like no downside to selling right now. I think that's the obvious part. If you're living somewhere else and you're sitting on a vacant property or you know where you're landing, don't wait until the beginning of the year. Now, for buyers, some of the pros is that I see less competition for buyers right now. Are you seeing the same thing? You've had a couple offers accepted, Stacy, where I mean, was it less competitive than you thought it was going to be, or tell us more about that?
Yeah, it was less competitive. The one offer that we got accepted, we got in super early, and I was just constantly on that agent.
Yeah.
And then another offer came in because we were trying to really push, a quick response. But then another offer came in and got competitive, so we had to get a little, more competitive. So we did some, buying or covering the seller's transfer tax. So that put my clients over the edge, but it was just the 2 offers. But they did cancel the 2 open houses over the weekend.
Wow.
So yeah, because the seller was, they weren't out for looking for 10 offers on
Right.
the home.
Right.
They had a couple great offers in hand. They wanted to wrap it up sooner than later too. So lucky for us.
Right. And I think that oftentimes those first offers that come in are the best,
Yep.
Like if you've got a handful of good, strong, solid offers, the likelihood that all of a sudden a week later something's going to come through that just like blows your socks off. Like I feel like those early ones are the people that are motivated. They got out there right away because they wanted to see it. They wrote the offer right away. They wanted to get it in. They didn't want to miss it. And like that's kind of the client that you want to work with.
That was 100% this client because they saw the house it was coming soon.
Yeah.
That day that it was hitting the market, we were like in early afternoon.
Yep.
Had the offer in by that night. So
Yeah.
there was real motivation. They submitted a number of offers on other homes and missed out. So they were, and this was the one. This was
Perfect.
the one.
It
so
all
it
worked
all
out.
works out. So the other ones that they missed out on, they don't feel bad about, and they're like, "Whoa, I'm glad we didn't get under contract
Right.
with those other ones." Yeah. So it does work out. But for buyers, I think right now there's a little less competition. Although those people that missed out are still looking.
Right.
So the house that you had listed, those buyers are still going to be out there.
Mhm.
So there's still going to be competition, but not that fever pitched where
Right.
you're up against 15, 20 offers.
Right.
Sarah, you make a great point there that you don't want the buyer that's like hemming and hawing about
Right.
the property. You want the buyer that wants the house because when they want the house, the likelihood of it going to settlement's a lot higher. And these competitive situations, and we've seen this, that people blow out of them a lot of times because they're like, oh, what did I get myself into? Did I
Right.
really want to pay that for this house? And the first offer, I mean, I said this to many clients, is usually the best offer, sometimes the only offer. And that's before we got into this kind of climate. So I do agree that you want people that have intent. I think that's really smart. And there is more opportunity out there right now. And I'm clear it's the opportunity for buyers to get the home that they want, not the home that they had to settle for maybe 6 months ago. I mean, are you seeing buyers at least find homes that forget the financials involved, which are a big part of this? Are they seeing homes that they're saying this could be a good fit for me? This is what I'm looking to do.
I think so.
Yeah. The 2 most recent ones I got under contract, it was like their perfect home.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I know. I love it.
Although
that's why I do this.
yeah. When I know you were saying earlier that for buyers, they're maybe going to be more likely to get some of the inspections and whatever.
Yep.
I feel like there was a little chunk of time earlier where I noticed that more. I feel like now, at least for some of the homes, I'm seeing a lot more of like waiving on those.
It depends on price point
But
too.
it depends on price point. Yeah.
If it's a real competitive price point,
Yeah.
definitely they got to waive.
Yeah.
But if it's a higher price point and there's other things involved like septic
Right.
and things like that, then
Yeah. Yeah.
those, but there's still concessions on those inspections.
Mhm.
There's still, my buyers are still conceding like the first 25,000
Yeah.
in any defects that might be found. So there's still concessions. It's not just like full on inspections and back to negotiations,
Right.
That used to be an option in the agreement of sale. They had this option too, where there was a threshold of defects that the buyer would accept, and then they got rid of it to make it simpler. It's very funny how stuff happens. Like they got rid of that. Now everyone's putting it in and typing up their own, which is
Right.
why not just have it in the agreement in the first place?
Yep.
Shows what our local board and associations do for us. That's a whole nother story. So I think what I look at is that there is the opportunity to negotiate given the circumstances.
Right.
And it's all circumstantial, because even in a bad market, the best homes sell quickly with multiple offers. If you're on one of those streets and you know what I'm talking about, you pull up and nothing's sold in the neighborhood in 2 years, there's probably people watching the neighborhood wanting to get in. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
And I would imagine, and this is just a prediction I have, you're going to see people living in homes longer because of all this, because they don't want to have to deal with the stress and the cost of moving again, and then try to take advantage of the market when rates do come down to refinance, which is another pro. I mean, and this isn't like marry the house, date the rate nonsense. This is the reality of buying a home. I mean, I don't know what the first rate was on everyone's home here. I had a home at like 7.5, and then rates went down. We refinanced. Rates
12.
went down. Okay, there you go.
11.99.
And then, but rates went down. You
Yes.
probably refinance. That's a normal
Absolutely.
thing that happens when
Yes.
you're in a normal market. So there's some reasons to transact here, and the sign of inventory popping up for the first time, and seeing that while rate locks are down 2%. I mean, that just means that there's less people buying right now. So even more opportunity to kind of jump into the market. So what advice do you have? And then we'll leave after this. You're talking to someone, let's say they're thinking about selling and buying, and they're not intertwined. They can do them independently. What advice are you going to tell a potential seller who could list and sell their home now? And what are you telling a potential buyer?
For sellers, I'm definitely telling them don't miss the opportunity. It's still very, very aggressive seller's market. You can test the waters if you want to go a little bit higher. You know what I mean? I think it's a good time to still do that. Obviously, the homes that are priced accordingly do get the competitive multiple offers. But if sellers are very curious about, how they can push the limit here, it's still the opportunities there. And to, if there's questions about what you should and shouldn't do to prep the home, definitely get with, a qualified agent. Find out it might not be worth to renovate the bathroom.
Right.
It might not be worth to change out the carpeting in that, in the basement or whatever. There's things that sellers, it weighs on their minds, what we need to do to prep the house. And just take advantage of the opportunity now. You don't want to look back and say, we should have listed it then. And for buyers, same thing. You can't be hyper-focused on the interest rates. Really, drill down and see what the monthly payments are. It's going to be different in different school districts because the tax bases are different.
Great point.
So, make sure that your agent is capable and willing to run cost sheets. If you're looking in Westchester School District, TE, Radnor, wherever you're looking, they're all going to be different. I took some folks out this weekend, and that's what happened. We were in all these different school districts. One district, Wallingford, Swarthmore, had, their taxes were $10,000.
Yeah.
Same price point as all the houses that we're looking at in Westchester and other areas. But that put them over the edge as far as their monthly payment. So you really have to be very aware of these kind of things. So your agent should, be very versed in how to explain that and how to provide you with those two very important numbers. What's the monthly payment going to be, and what's it going to cost me to get into this home?
Yeah.
So what about sellers? We got buyers. That's on lock. Sarah, what do you think about sellers?
For sellers, I mean, I think absolutely now is the time to go ahead and interview the agents. If it's somebody from our team, you probably only need that one interview. But if you wanna, if you wanna like interview multiple people, like now's the time to do that. Get the home prepped and ready. Get the game plan in place, and know that this is the time to do it. So yeah, I guess just kind of explaining the process and then finding out, obviously a very important piece is what happens if this sells within 30, like if you get under contract within 30 days and we're closed, and they want a 30-day close, like where are you going? What are you doing? Do you have another place to be? Do we need to explain, rent backs and, just making sure that all those pieces are in place. So if everything does go according to plan, like where are you going next?
Right.
It's probably the most important question to ask a seller. That's like
Right.
if you were to break down LP Mama into a seller question, the one question you want to ask is where are you planning on moving to? Because they don't know.
Mhm.
They're not selling their house.
Yeah.
And so many agents, I see them like they try to go in and like convince them it's the great time to sell. They don't have a place to go.
Right.
They're not moving.
Right.
It's that
Can't be
simple.
homeless.
I mean, rarely are people like, hey, I'm going to cash out high now. And I
Right.
mean, it's usually there's a motivator there. So that's a great point.
And then what I would add for buyers for this market is, we talk a lot about you've got location, you've got price point, and you've got condition of the house. So getting clear on what ranks number one, and then like when properties that fit that kind of come up and are the right fit, if they're feeling as though, yes, the location is right and the price point is right, but this is a good bit of work, kind of bringing it back to, we could switch up the order of what's important here, but then we might not get this location. So just rechecking in throughout the process, especially if you've been working with people for a while, to make sure they're still ranking things in the same order that they were when you first started working with them. Because, as people go out and see all these homes, like maybe something there shifts. Maybe all of a sudden the location isn't as important and it is more like condition of the house or vice versa.
Well said. So inventory's up. A lot of stuff to think about here. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about whose fault it is that we are in this low inventory, high rate situation next on Toole Time Real Estate Radio.
For the best local mortgage service and great rates on your money, look no further than Mortgage America. We've been operating in the greater Philadelphia area for 40 years with a focus on smooth, easy access to home purchasing. Whether you're a first-time buyer, upsizing or downsizing, or just refinancing, we have programs for you. We also have closing cost assistance programs and access to subsidized interest rates. Pre-approval is free, no costs or commitments. To learn more, visit our website at mymortgageamerica.com or give us a call at 610-439-8000. We always have a person available to take your call with around-the-clock human service. Purchase your home with the personalized, local service you find at Mortgage America.
Mortgage America is an equal housing lender. NMLS 128501.
The Tom Toole Sales Group is the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania with over $165 million in volume for 2021. I'm Tom Toole, and our team has achieved that kind of success by being a great place to work with and to work for. No one knows Greater Philly better than we do. We know real estate, but more importantly, we're real people. We hire the best agents, and we give them all the tools to succeed. Even our brand new agents sell 17 to 24 homes a year because our team delivers the best experience in real estate. Teams deliver a better experience than individuals, and we're a top 1% real estate team in the country. We call it AAA service. We're your advocate, ally, and advisor. Because this isn't a transaction to us. It's a relationship. If you're buying or selling a home, call the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX main line at 610-692-6976 or visit tomtoole.com. That's tomtoole.com. Sell your home for more, and remember the real estate golden rule. You always get more when you work with Tom Toole.
When you're getting a mortgage, you shouldn't have to sacrifice great service just to get a great rate. At Mortgage America, we've been lending with this philosophy for over 35 years. We have access to great low rates without the complications and delays of big or online banks. We're a local Pennsylvania lender with loan officers that you can actually meet. As PHFA's #1 lender, we specialize in all residential mortgage programs, including first-time buyer programs and low down payment options. For your free pre-approval, call us at 610-439-8000 or apply online at mymortgageamerica.com.
Mortgage America's equal housing lender, NMLS 12850.
Have you considered a career in real estate? Do you want control over your income? Whether you have a license or not, call us today at 610-692-6976 or visit TomToole.com. Join our team, the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line. Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Stacy Mitchell. She's Sarah Timon. We've got Nick behind the camera, and we all work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we're streaming live every week on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Just look up Tom Toole Sales Group. So we've got this article. I couldn't resist myself talking about it here. It's by Ron Insana of CNBC. And he basically asked this questions, and I want to get your take on it before I even go there. Is the Federal Reserve the cause of the unrelenting upward pressure on single-family home prices, and are they also the reason the supply of existing single-family homes hovers near historic lows? Straw poll, what do you two think?
Well, we love to beat up on the Fed, so I say yes.
Yep. I'm in agreement.
So Ron Insana also says yes. So here's some of the stats behind it. And I really want to get your take on this in all seriousness. We kind of knew that it was a loaded question there that I asked. So existing home sales were 16.6% below that of a year ago, while the inventory of unsold homes rose to 3.3 months. That's pretty high compared to what we're dealing with, by the way, because we're seeing basically a month in the suburbs and 3.5 months in the city of Philadelphia, but it's well below the average. And what he goes on to talk about is the 27-year low of mortgage rates, and the 27-year low of mortgage demand, and he goes through all these reasons. The first thing he talks about is people being stuck at home and the ultra low mortgage rates, which kind of got us into this situation in the first place. So what's your take on those? I mean, it's how that kind of drove a lot of this. I mean, I've got a theory on this, and it all kind of makes sense. But what's your take on that, being stuck at home and seeing those 2-3% rates?
Yeah, I mean, to encourage the economy to grow, since we were shut down for COVID, the interest rates were at such a historic low level. So it's kind of like, be careful what you wish for, because there's always consequences.
Right.
Well, these are the consequences now. That's super high inflation. They put a bunch of money into the economy to keep it going. And this is the result of that, unfortunately. So, where they were kind of trying to help, everybody sustain and businesses sustain and to get through this pandemic, they also now are causing,
the lock-in effect.
The lock-in effect, especially because that's the point. The sellers are stuck. They have these great rates, 3-4%. And they're like, why am I getting into a 7.5%? We just talked about all that. But not only that, it's the interest rates on the credit cards too that are causing such a negative effect on people. People are feeling that for sure.
Yeah.
When they're using their credit cards for more things like groceries and energy costs, their rates are high and their monthly payments are high on their credit cards.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it makes total sense that when you've got, you've got these low rates, like that's not an unimportant thing to look at as you're, talking to different sellers and looking at what makes the most sense for you. Like, I mean, that's a huge factor.
So you're both right on, and what Ron Insana talks about here is that there's been this ultra low mortgage rate sort of environment since the financial crisis in 2008. Not as low as what we saw during like 2020 to 2022, but this is not the only time we've seen rates get to like 3 or 4. I mean, they've kind of gone up and down a little bit, and they've hovered around there. And what kind of exasperated the problem was people weren't allowed to do anything, so they saved up all this money, and they're like, well, I'm just going to go buy a house, because all the disposable income and the spending that the economy was missing got put towards housing. And that created this demand in the first place. And they, and it kind of created these people that are saying, well, I'm locked in. Lance Lambert's term, Sarah used it perfectly. Well, I'm locked in now. I can't move anywhere. And now we've seen the spread on the 10-year Treasury yield and 30-year mortgage rates. It's up to 3 full percentage points. And historically, that's like 1.5 to 2. So if the Fed continues to raise rates about the rising shelter costs, and that's their combative tool they're going to use, then those rising shelter costs would then become like a self-reinforcing cycle, forcing the Fed to continue to hike rates. So they're kind of in this situation where they've backed themselves into a corner. And it could cause more inflation to happen. And that's what I'm really concerned about here if they continue to raise rates, because everything's going to cost more. So the second point that he has here is that it's time for the Fed to stop tightening. There's precious and there's very little the Fed can do about it. But if they keep hiking rates, and obviously the days of like 2 to 4% mortgage rates are over, if they keep hiking rates, it's gonna make the problem even worse. So, his theory is that basically you got to let this play out and stop micromanaging the situation. So, I mean, what if you were chairman of the Fed, ladies? What would you do at this next meeting?
I would have not raised rates the past couple of times just to let things organically try to work out on their own.
Right.
So, but, we're not the Fed. But yeah, the next one, I would definitely say no. We're just going to let things settle down, let things cool off. Let's reevaluate, come back in a couple of months.
Right. I mean, I think that sometimes the more they do, the worse situation it puts people in. So maybe like do a little less and let things like iron themselves out a little bit. I also would have to assume that there are quite a few people whose job is to look and see what happens if this happens, right? Like to kind of like predict
you would imagine, yeah.
So I don't know, maybe lean into that data more. Like I don't know why it keeps on seeming to be like a surprise that like these different things are happening. And I would have to assume that there are very smart people that are like, it is their job to kind of like predict what if we do this is what will happen here. And I mean, I know that like, you can't predict everything, but I would just think there would be more of a like playbook for if this is what's going on, how do we like combat it without it negatively impacting all these other sectors. But that's not my job.
Well, logic would reason that you're right. And one of the challenges here, we're in uncharted territory because we had this pandemic we came out of. I mean, when have we seen the economy shut down like that before?
Right.
I mean, maybe in like the 1920s where we didn't have those measurables and data and everything else with, there's all sorts of diseases where that's happened. I mean, it's not the first time. So we're in uncharted territory, but it was so extreme what the policy was that, hey, we're going to just go to zero. And they did the same thing back in 2008. 2008 was much different because you had these mortgages that were just based on like literally like they took your pulse, Sarah and Stacey, and they're like, okay, you're approved for $800,000. Congratulations. And that's kind of how it went. So I mean, you would think they have better advisors. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's kind of the whole point of this. So if they had better advisors, that'd be great. It seems like their measurables they use, we've talked about this, they use all this like dated, sort of wacky, antiquated ways to measure things. And I think that's another part of the problem is they don't look at the real-time data. You got people like Barry Sternlight saying, hey, your metrics are off. And they say, we're going to raise rates.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of a challenge there. I mean, there's enough smart people in the country that, political affiliation aside, unfortunately, that's not part of this. You could have gotten some better data here.
Right.
So I agree with you. I just don't know that the decision makers always want to hear it from those folks either.
Right.
They don't.
Right.
They don't. It's a power struggle. It's like, no, we're in charge and we're going to do it this way.
Right. And it's just like, dude, big picture. Like
they're like, we don't care. This is how we've done it in the past. We're going to continue to do it this way. And this is how we know. And we're going to, move forward with our methods here.
Right.
And that's it.
Sounds like old real estate agents.
I will not use dot loop or boomtown. I'm going to use paper and pen. But yeah, that's what I think. I think they're just they're stuck in their system, and this is how we're going to do it. And they're not open-minded.
Yeah,
things change. Things you have to come up to the times.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, it's great to point fingers here. I think the tough part about this article, like this is, I think it's well thought out. I mean, Ron Insana, it looks like he's writing something that's well thought out here. I'd love to see like some solutions like this. I mean, where it's, hey, here's what to do next, or I've analyzed the data, and this guy, his job's to write opinions and commentary for CNBC. What happens next? I'd love to see, hey, here's a way to solve this. I think that the immediate solve is stop raising rates at the meeting in 2 weeks. That would be one. And then secondly, maybe stop raising them again and just let this play out over maybe a quarter or something like that, or some sort of incentive for sellers to sell their home because they have no incentive right now.
That would be great.
And here's the challenge with this. I mean, you have, and if you think about it, you got a capital gains issue, which is something that some of these investors, they're going to have problems liquidating their properties. Sellers are almost penalized now for having a lower rate. You got a 3.5 and you got to go to 7 to go buy something new. What incentive is there to do that? Especially if you're like, imagine the downsizer. Like, not only are you moving to a smaller home, and let's say it's not health related, because that's usually a lot of downsizers move for that reason, and your rate's going to be double.
Right.
List your house. Like there's
I'll
no
just stay
incentive.
here. Right.
The incentive that the Obama administration put out there in 2008 was for buyers to buy. They got an $8,000 tax credit, and there was people that were like coming out of the woodwork to use that. And if there was an incentive or a tax incentive for sellers, I could see that solving this. I don't think that's even something that anyone has even thought about. And that's the challenge with the market. It's, hey, we got to get inflation down. We got to get, costs down. Well, what about an incentive for sellers? What about changing some laws with a portable mortgage rate where you could take your debt and bring it to another home and purchase it that way? I've talked to high C-level executives at major lenders about this, and there's just no way to do it. The laws don't exist. That would solve a lot of these problems.
What was that second part again?
So a portable mortgage rate, right? Let's say you're in a $800,000 house. That's a downsized number. You want to move to something at 4, and you got $300 left on your loan. Well, you take the $300 and you say, hey, whoever your lender is, I'm bringing this debt with me and applying it. And I think that, like, if you had a portable rate or some way to bring the debt with you, it's kind of like an assumable FHA loan.
I was just going to say, it's
But-
almost like a reverse assumable where you're like,
I mean, and I've talked to people about this, and I think the problem is the laws are just not there. And by the time anything gets passed, who the heck knows where we're going to be? That's the challenge here. And I just don't know that the housing market's going to change anytime soon. I think we're going to see a lot more of this the next couple years, where we're just dealing with low inventory. And I would imagine people are going to start living in their homes a lot longer. When I got into the business, I sound like one of those people, it was like 7 years was the average, right? That's going up to 11 plus. So that's almost like a full half has been added on over a 20-year period.
Wow.
So I'm clear you're going to see more people living in their homes longer. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation.
And probably investing in, updates or additions, things like that, as opposed to getting back out there and looking for a new home.
It might be cheaper to get a personal loan and add on to a property than it is to get a mortgage.
Yeah. Yeah. I as a matter of fact, good point there, because there were sellers that were considering a couple years ago, and they just dumped a bunch of money in their kitchen, updated their kitchen. They said they're perfectly happy and they're not going to move now. So, that can happen.
And the rates on personal loans are typically going to be higher than a mortgage rate. I mean, it depends on the bank, right? So, but let's say you got a 3, right? And then you're buying, let's say you want to put a $200,000 addition on your home. Well, so you're doing that at the higher rate. Well, it's still less than buying a new home with that same amount of debt. Like that's where this is going to get funky for a lot of people.
well, and then it doesn't solve the piece of, I feel like there's a lot of, then you're taking these, like middle of the road homes and now pushing them up into a whole nother category. And they're not the initial home, where we already, for the first-time home buyer, we've already seen a shortage of those homes in different pockets. So if you just stay in yours and build it up and take it to that next level, it's further decreasing the pool.
Gosh, that's a great point.
That first-time home buyer house.
Because the new construction, I mean, I don't know if there's a couple of new construction places in Downingtown, and already there's waiting lists. So as soon as they open up the sales office, they're gone. But to me, they're not really first-time home buyer prices.
They're $1 million. They're starting at $800,000. But then if you want to have a door on your bathroom, that's an upgrade.
Right, or so how about some lighting? Oh, you want lights?
Oh, you want
Okay.
to see in here? Oh.
Yeah, so it's starting at, and
Right.
you have to explain that to people,
Right.
because they see these price points, and it's like that's
Yeah.
going to get you very, very basic.
Yeah.
You
Mhm.
know, let's see if you want this and that and the other, you're up into a whole different price category.
Right.
So, but that is even becoming not an option for
Right.
the most part, especially like to your point about the first time home buyers. Those homes that they're putting additions on and upgrading
Mhm.
are going to be out of their price point in a couple of years. Anyway, it's not a first time home buyer house.
Right. Right.
Well, and when you take that one step further, that there's not a lot of incentive for builders to even build those first time home buyer
Right.
properties. I mean, so if you give some, and this is where the government could probably step in, give like some tax incentives to builders. And this is maybe not even the national level. This is probably the local level. Some of these townships could lighten their zoning strategies a little bit. I know there's a new development going into Radnor. It's like 38 townhomes. It's a drop in the bucket. That doesn't do much at all. And if you're like mixed use, condos, townhomes, like that's what the market really needs right now more than anything else. And so there's a lot that could be done here to fix this. I just don't know that we have anybody that we elected that's actually going to do it, which is very disappointing. So
No, they don't. They're not focused on these issues. They're
Yeah.
focused on other issues,
Right.
non-issues.
Shame.
all right. On that depressing note, we're going to take a quick break here. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about this Anywhere settlement that happened last week. It was literally like as we went into the show, unpack that a little more next on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
You shouldn't have to deal with all the red tape when getting your mortgage from a big or online bank. At Mortgage America, we have access to big bank money, but with the personalized and detailed service of a local bank. We are here in your community and ready to serve with fast settlements, low down payment options, and first-time homebuyer programs. Pre-approval is free, no costs or commitments. For more information, visit our website at mymortgageamerica.com or give us a call at 610-439-8000.
Mortgage America's equal housing lender. NMLS 128501.
Have you considered a career in real estate? Do you want control over your income? Whether you have a license or not, call us today at 610-692-6976 or visit TomToole.com. Join our team, the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line.
I'm Tom Toole of the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line. If you're thinking of becoming a real estate agent in the greater Philly area, I have a special offer for you. Our team did $165 million of volume in 2021, making us the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania and a top 1% team nationally. Our agents love us because we offer them a successful career, a great life, and an unbeatable culture. Agents who've been with us for at least a year average 30-plus sales. Even our brand new agents average 17 to 24 sales a year. We offer proven systems and expert training. We help you set more appointments and sell more houses. Now here's the offer. If you don't have a real estate license yet, we offer real estate scholarships so you can get one for free. Check it out at realestatescholarshipprogram.com or visit the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line at tomtoole.com. That's tomtoole.com. Get more out of your real estate career, and remember the real estate golden rule. You always get more when you work with Tom Toole.
When you're getting a mortgage, you shouldn't have to sacrifice great service just to get a great rate. At Mortgage America, we've been lending with this philosophy for over 35 years. We have access to great low rates without the complications and delays of big or online banks. We're a local Pennsylvania lender with loan officers that you can actually meet. As PHFA's #1 lender, we specialize in all residential mortgage programs, including first-time buyer programs and low down payment options. For your free pre-approval, call us at 610-439-8000 or apply online at mymortgageamerica.com.
Mortgage America's equal housing lender. NMLS 128501.
All right. Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Time, and she's Stacy Mitchell. We have Nick behind the camera, and we all work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Main Line, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. We're streaming live every week, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Just look up Tom Toole Sales Group, follow, and subscribe. So last week, this might have been the big, we get breaking news every once in a while on the show, and considering it's weekly, I think that's amazing in itself. The Anywhere settlement. So if you don't know what this is, Anywhere Real Estate is the parent company for Century 21, Coldwell Banker, Sotheby's, a lot of different real estate brands. And they had a settlement agreement in 2 class action antitrust lawsuits dealing with buyer broker compensation to the tune of $83.5 million that one of them is going to trial in about a month and 4 days on October 16th. And Anywhere is the first of all the named parties to settle. The other named parties are the National Association of Realtors, RE/MAX, Keller Williams, Home Services, who's the parent company for Berkshire Hathaway. So now that this is, and we don't know the terms of the settlement. So now that this is settled and this news is shaken out, there's been a lot of industry reaction. And I'm clear there's going to be some changes that are made. After digesting this from the show last week, and we had a team meeting about this, and we had a team meeting scheduled, and we talked about this, I should say. It wasn't just about this. What do you think this means for the real estate industry as of right now? I mean, this is not insignificant news here.
I think it's going to take a little bit of time for any official changes to go through. But I think it is a time to make sure that you are always showing your value and, showing your worth and assisting your buyers more than just opening the door.
Well said.
We don't know the terms of the
Right.
settlement.
Right.
So we don't know what that really means. But I agree with Sarah. Like, you have to know your value. You have to know what you're bringing to the buyers. And the buyers need to understand that too. My concern is that it's going to create havoc for the buyers. Like, they're going to be unrepresented. They're going to try to do things on their own.
Yeah.
And this is how this whole buyer agency started anyway.
Right.
So the consumer is going to be hurt in this process, I'm sure. Or they're going to be going to the listing agents for everything. The listing agents are going to be representing both sides. Or, it's just, to me, I don't see how, I don't know. I think we need to know more information about the settlement.
Right.
And like you said, Sarah, it's going to take time for it to be all sorted out and figured out. But one thing I do know, the sellers aren't, it's all negotiable at this point anyway.
Right.
They're not forced to pay the buyer's agency compensation.
Right.
The broker compensation. But it's kind of implied, or it's kind of, because they do want to sell the house.
Right.
You're going to reach more clients. You're going to reach more buyers.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be represented. It's going to make a smoother transaction.
Right.
So that everybody gets to the finish line. And that's what both sides want anyway, right?
Right.
Yeah. So people are missing out on those facts there.
Right. And I think it's very easy to think that transactions could still just go through super smoothly until, like, all of a sudden this piece is taken out, and then it's like, oh no. Like, like, it's really easy to be like, oh, we probably don't need that. I think it'll go fine. Like, and then when it doesn't, like,
right. Do you fix your own car when your car breaks down?
Right. I bet lawyers are going to end up getting more money. People will, like, go to their, like, real estate attorney instead of.
This is very interesting you say that. I reached out to a for sale by owner yesterday, maybe Friday. I can't remember. I've made thousands of phone calls the past couple weeks, and it was a lawyer advertising a for sale by owner, which I found to be very misleading.
Yeah.
It's, hey, well, I'm the one handling this, and I'm thinking to myself, well, do you have a real estate license?
Right.
Is that and I'm not a lawyer. I don't know what that means. I've seen lawyers do this before, and you're going to see lawyers come in and get paid to prep all the documents and do certain things. What lawyers don't do is market the property.
Right.
They don't navigate the details of the transaction. Sometimes they don't even know what to do in some of these situations. I mean, I found that lawyers have made any real estate transaction I've been involved with, and this is a sample size of thousands of homes. So I saw Stacy's reaction. That said it all. I wish we could have made that into a sound for the radio. It was better than that. You should have seen it. The point is that all they do is overcomplicate it, and they're like, here's my fee. So and there's a place for lawyers in some states, not in Pennsylvania. I'm going to go on record as saying that. You two are right on. I mean, here's what I know. And we only got a couple minutes left here. If you can't communicate your value, why someone should be using you as a buyer or a seller, you're in a lot of trouble as a real estate agent. Using things like, hey, it's free for you to use me. I mean, I've heard people say that. It's cringeworthy. No, the seller pays a fee for that.
Right.
And saying anything of, here's the standard fee, here's the standard practice, you've got to get away from those terms. Things like saying things like, hey, here's our professional fee, we pay X amount to the other agent, and it's all in the contract and very clear. That's how you got to explain this stuff. And the agents who are going to get in a lot of trouble are the ones that just send out the paperwork and don't explain it. I mean, that's always been, I mean, we've seen that happen a lot, and with a lot of folks where I didn't explain the docs, I just sent it to them. And, that's the consumer's got some culpability there for not reading it.
Right.
There's going to have to be some serious training on this. And if I'm a real estate agent, I'm also being aware of, you ever see like those commercials that are on at night where, hey, if you were served the drug, blah, 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 between 2015 and 2019, you're entitled to settlement funds.
Yeah.
There's going to be some of those commercials coming out after this. I'm
Again,
telling
the lawyers making more money.
Yes, they do.
Well, the speculation on this is that a lot of these fees were going to go to legal representation in this proposed, not this settlement, but the proposed cost of the whole thing with all the companies involved. So, I mean, I recently was involved in, I live in a local township, and they were accused of overcharging for school taxes. So I got a check back. It was like $200. This is what I get back in the mail for living there for, I don't know, 12 years. I mean, it's like, this is $25 a year? Like, what was this? So I'm just, if agents, if you're not able to communicate, here's why you should use me, you're in a lot of trouble. Mm-hmm. And, there's LegalZoom, there's TurboTax. I mean, there's people that pay a lot of money to accountants and that pay no money to accountants. There's people that pay a lot of money to lawyers and then try to do things themselves. And usually the latter, that's when you get in a lot of trouble.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But the buyers are ultimately going to be paying for some representation, whether it be legal fees, if they hire an attorney,
right,
or if they do it themselves, they could be
just
really
setting
setting themselves up for a bad situation.
Right.
Well, we've seen that happen with discount brokers, where they they don't give any advice and they say, hey, we'll do less, and then they screw up the whole transaction. So this is going to be interesting to see what the settlement details are. We'll definitely break it here first on Toole Time Real Estate Radio, at least if it's on a Tuesday. That's it for this week's episode. You want to follow Sarah? She's on Instagram. It's at Ty_Ty Time with a TY. At Stacy is at the number 2 Mitchko on Instagram. You can follow me at TomToole3RD, at TomToole3rd. We're live every week, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Just look up Tom Toole Sales Group, follow and subscribe, and we'll be back next Tuesday on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.